Hello there, and welcome back to the Morning Cafe. Now, on this segment, we're going to discuss and rather delve into the matters of school unrest in the country, which have been witnessed in various schools, due to arson and plenty of things have been going on. I am joined by a very interesting panel. On my left, I have Gabriel Nyamo, who is a life coach, and on my far left, we are joined by Jasper Ondimo, an education expert. We'll also be having Mutheu Kasanga, who is the chair of Kenya Private Schools Association, who will be joining us live via Skype. So now let's start off. I'll start with you, Jasper. Should we wait till schools are burnt down so that we can have a proper sit down on the root causes of school unrest in the country?
First, thank you, Mdoni, for having me. That is a good question. But as a country, we should be looking at the short-term solutions to the unrest, and then we also look at the long-term. Then the long-term now can include having a national dialogue as a country. Why are we having these cases year in, year out? Including 2016, when there were about 239 cases. So we are yet to see the magnitude that we have seen before. And then it begs the question, why haven't we addressed some of these issues? We have had task forces which have been formed. I remember even in 2016, the CS for Education, then Fred Matiang'i, formed a task force to investigate the causes of all fires. They had several recommendations in that particular report, but the implementation of it is still a mirage. Therefore, I acknowledge that in the education sector, we do have a lot of issues that needs a national conversation. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Gabriel, where do you suppose, where did the water start beating us in when it comes to dealing with the education sector in matters of unrest in schools?
All right. Also, thank you, Moloni, for having me this morning. What we see in the country as what you're calling the unrest and nationally, I think it's just the tip of the iceberg. And if we trace back, these are things that has built up over a long period of time. This is not the first time we're experiencing this. Apparently, as my colleague have said, we've always probably responded to it using a short-term mindset, and then we bury and forget the
Once
future.
The issues
Once the issues
to
are
have settled down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The children we have in school right now, whether they're in their teenage level, they've been there for the last 15 years on average, for example. So if there are things that they have picked from the community, they have accumulated and accrued this over lifelong. But we kind of want to bride ourselves and just respond to it and want to blame somebody. So I'll say this is something that has a generational aspect. It takes around 21 years actually to complete a whole generation. So you should not be looking at it as just a very emotional aspect of schools are being burned out and then respond in a short-term way. We need to look at deep, entrenched kind of interventions, especially communally, and without blaming anybody. Because every time that this happens, we always are quick to blame. Either we are blaming a system, a government, and I want to say as a parent, myself, I want to own up what is happening. I've been there for the last over those 17 years, and I believe I am part of this. So I don't want, first of all, to lay any blame to anybody. First of all, I own up, and we really need to apologize even to the society in general of what is happening. But of course, above that, then we need to confront the issue head on and see where we went wrong. I believe we're going to discuss this in this segment.
Absolutely. So when it comes to the blame game, teachers are being blamed, because the parents are saying on their part that teachers have plenty of time with these students, and when they come back home, it's just a 1 to 2 week break window period, and then they're back to school. Then the teachers on the other side, they are blaming the parents. They're saying this is the Gen Zs, the Kamami, the Kadadi generation. So is that where these unrest comes in?
All right, let me say first, I want just to give a certain context and a background, and especially I want to speak in the currency of the current generation and the times you're living. It's good to always discern the times. One, I keep asking myself from the time these issues started being discussed, now for the last almost 1 month, and I keep asking, what would be different if you put in 1,000 adults in one school, in a boarding school? And I mean Muthoni, Jasper, and myself. I don't want to be pessimistic, but I would say probably the situation will be more grave. we might not just ban the school, probably to be more worse. A research done by Gotv News says that 87% of the working populations are actually unhappy. Wake up every day, and they dress up, wear suits, go to work, and they're unhappy on what they do. So here I'm talking about the adults.
Yeah.
That's the kind of adults we're having. So these are the adults that they are bringing for these young ones. So you can see whether things are broken, even right from there. So, and as a life coach, as a purpose coach, you find there's a certain sense of purpose in the whole aspect of humanity and our priorities. We are chasing after things that probably really don't matter. We don't have the mindset of a generational approach where are we able to create, and everybody should be responsible of what they are doing for the people and parents for the generations to come. So that when you handing over and transition to the next generation, there are some values we are handing over, there are some heritage we are handing over, but we have, because we are all busy chasing after things that are really not very much worth. And I think that's where like the national dialogue, the value systems and what is very critical. And it has been founded by some certain principles, which maybe we have kind of neglected over this period of time. What I would say is we have allowed ourselves and humanity to walk on an autopilot. Autopilot means just doing things mechanically without having intentionality. I recently had an engagement with one of my daughter and I was taking her to school. And I love the spirit behind the school. So when I went to the school, the first thing that I was asked, and I remember having a chat with my wife because I really felt I'm not intentional, yet I've been a purpose coach. And the first thing the teacher asked me is that, tell us the weaknesses and the strength of your daughter. And also, what do you think has sedimented as like her purpose for life? This is a 7-year-old. And that thing really got me thinking, wait a minute. So I need to be thinking about the purpose of this child. I need to nurture her to actually shape her behavior, motivation, and attitudes towards that. And that's the first time I discovered, wait a minute, I think I just thought it's just to go and fill in an admission form and the child get admitted. Now, question is, how many of us are really conscious about that? To be very intentional and purposeful, even on the way we are bringing up our children. So forgetting about the brain of what the teacher should do, and yes, we can talk about that and what the parents can do, that's okay. But I think we are hiding behind the scene the very fundamental drift which we have all need to be accountable to.
So Jasper, which are some of these causes that are, believed to lead to unrest in schools?
First of all, you look at the issue of infrastructure in schools. Right now, we're talking about 100% transition. And some of these schools, you find their capacity is 500 children. And then as a result of 100%, the number is doubling. In that particular case, this particular learner is going to be constrained in one place. They're not going to have enough space there. And one of the reasons which can be attributed why most private schools are not having these unrest is because maybe there is some space there. And then also there is issue about the management, where you find that there is some form of high-handedness where the administration might not even want to listen to what the children are saying. A good example is a school in Western Kenya where they were denied watching a match and they decided to set a dormitory ablaze because the principal refused them not to watch a match. And then also we have dysfunctional guidance and counseling departments in some of these schools. And that is where, as a country, we've not invested in guidance and counseling. You'll find that a school of 1,000+ students, you have 2 teachers who are doing the guidance and counseling. And some of these teachers, they just have a certificate where they attended a workshop. They're not guidance and counseling experts per se. So I think in such a case, we can involve even the guidance and counseling experts. Let us open these schools even to other stakeholders. It should not be like, so this is Alliance High School, the gates are closed, nobody should come in. There is a way that we can have all these people getting in. I mean, you can even have a program where some of these students in universities who are studying psychology, let them go to these schools, talk to these particular young people. So that level of guidance and counseling in schools, we need to improve it. And then also there is an issue of drugs, which we are facing as a society. Most of these arson cases are done by students who have been engaging in some of these drugs. They lack their sobriety, they want to frustrate the administration. And then also, most importantly, on the teacher side, there is this aspect of delocalization, where a teacher is transferred to another school. Now, you find that a principal has been transferred to, let's say, Majiangombe High School. And then when the principal reaches there, I say, I want to introduce my new rules, my new systems. The principal does not take time to learn what is the culture of this school. How can I learn it first, then I introduce changes gradually. So the sudden implementation of radical reforms will make these students to actually fight back, and by banning these particular dormitories. And I think even on the short term is some of these schools you see banning. I think short term we can even have some people responsible for these dormitories even at night, because everybody knows in this country this is the season where the students are banning dormitories. So you can use some less amount of money paying these people to even sleep in these dormitories, instead of they ban, and then you shall have 21 million shillings being raised by these particular parents. So the courses are as many as the schools, because they are very, very specific. And then most importantly, as the life coach has hinted out, is also abdication of responsibility. As a society, we've left some of these children on their own. We've embraced boarding schools, and I think Madam though Kasanga will be able to speak into it, that Kenya, we have really, we're taking children in boarding schools at a very young age. Some of these children do not learn any values. I was surprised at a particular school I was going, and I realized that there is a 4-year-old there who is a boarder. So you look at the society, we've abdicated our responsibility. And then overally, as much as we might be very quick to blame parents for abdication of responsibility, what makes them abdicate responsibility? It is the state of the economy right now. Because if you reach home early, or if you leave work early, that means you're not going to be paid for overtime. You're not going to have enough money. So the system is also unfriendly to good parenting, such that these parents have to work hard. They have to sacrifice more hours working to get money for these children. So therefore, it is a multi-purpose or multi-sectoral approach on this issue.
Absolutely. So now we are joined by Mutheu Kasanga, the chair of Kenya Private Schools Association. Now, over to you. You know, when the Ministry of Education, is protecting, how should the Ministry of Education, protect students from victimization and false accusation, even when action is taken against them, especially to those who are, victimized of destroying school property?
That's an interesting question. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, my friends on the panel. It's good to see you again. The question of victimization is a very interesting one. And I really don't know how to answer you, because is that the biggest issue we have when it comes to destruction of property? Is we are very lucky so far. We've not lost a single life. Yet we know that these things, as they happen, children in the past have lost their lives over these school fires. It is a very serious matter. And in my opinion, and I'm sure Bwana Jasper will agree, the consequences are minimal. That is partly why students feel that they can do this over and over again, because some of the consequences are neither here nor there, and are sort of perpetuating that you can get away with destruction of public property. And this erodes our country's moral fiber even further, when we have young people who feel that it is okay to destroy public property to get what they want, despite the issues. Like, I agree with Bwana Jasper on everything he has said about what are the multiple causes of these incidences of arson in our schools. I agree with him 100%. But that said, is that how to problem solve? Isn't it better, like we have seen in some cases, where school children have walked out of a school without destroying it? Because it is the parents of the children left behind who are left to build up that school again. Why punish those who do not? Those who remain in school, while those who are punished leave scot-free, relatively. So I think the question of the processes not being treated quite right there is sort of like a case, sorting out. If you have seen some of the circulars that the Ministry of Education has released at regional level, you will see that head teachers are being asked to be very fair in these processes. Once they see, we have already seen that some schools have followed previous circulars and put in CCTV cameras, and therefore the culprits are being caught. The question of now victimization really does not arise. It really does not arise. But here's the thing. With the government schools, with the Ministry of Public Schools, the process of even expelling a child is very long. So by the time that process is all fulfilled, you can almost be sure that any child who is truly implicated, by the time they are expelled, it is provable. There is absolute proof, because the process of expelling a child is so long-winded and it really does involve very many players. It's not just the head teacher who decides to expel. He has to call in the board of management. It has to go through the sub-county office before it is finally approved. And this particular case, you can see that the police are now involved. When the case of arson, you've seen in the papers today, you've seen kids who have been arrested for these things. So it becomes then a judicial process, not just a school head teacher process. I hope somehow that has captured your sentiments on the issue of,
So when it comes to, cashing in on this unrest of, school cases that is ongoing due to the, the upheavals witnessed, how do schools determine the cost of the damage that has been caused by the students, and how is the money accounted for so far? Because, especially in some schools, after there is that unrest, there are those arsonry cases, the school tends to ask for, an unbelievable amount, especially Kakamega High School asking for, nearly to 10,000 Kenya shillings per student, with a population over 2,200 students. The costs are unbelievable to just pay for those damages.
As outsiders, we have not gone into the school to assess the damage ourselves. We are sitting here in a studio discussing damages that we ourselves have not assessed. This is a government institution. All government institutions have procurement processes. So there is a BOM. There's a bill of quantities. A bill of, what is it called? That construction document that quantifies. And then after that, there's you raise the money. Government processes are very, very clear. They sort of act within the law framework, so they cannot do it outside the Procurement Act. So if that is what has been arrived at, then that is what it is. Otherwise, the best people to go in and cross-check is not you and me. It's the Anti-Corruption and Ethics Authority. Those are the guys to go and cross-check that this is being done. But I can almost assure you that I've seen the WhatsApp messages going round, and they themselves are now inciting further speculation rather than being a part of the solution. And the government processes are pretty clear. If there's a parent group, the PTA is involved in the board of management. If the PTA of the school is concerned that the BOM is overcharging, then they also have a right in the same BOM to bring in, other partners, and that should be the way, rather than politicizing this thing and bringing it to a studio for us to discuss. We have not set foot there.
Absolutely.
I believe any of us here are experts on construction, and looking at just the size of the building from a layman's eye and somebody who has put up infrastructure for schools, I can say that looks pretty reasonable. Pretty reasonable from my end, just from a layman's point of view, and as somebody who perhaps can appreciate even the value of goods lost in that dome. When you imagine 5,000,
now we have
parents are being asked to pay 10,000, and there is structural damage to a building, you can already begin to see that it's not enough even.
All right. Now, thank you, Madam Kasanga, for that. Now we have a caller online. So hello.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, my name is Maro, and I'm excited by the discussion.
Thank you.
And I would want to commend the panelists for their contributions. And I also want to make a few suggestions regarding the issue of unrest in schools. I think they have identified where the gaps are. There is a need for proper management of our schools, and I think it's important that teachers and administrators of schools are empowered to understand the times we are in, and also the issue of guidance and counseling. We truly need professionals who are able to understand and manage issues that affect students in schools. But more so, I would also want to suggest that it's important for all the actors to understand issues of children, growth and development, the different levels, the different stages, and also apply the right-based approach in understanding and managing students. And I would say the gap has been that, these children are being empowered, the issues of child rights and all that, and the managers or the teachers have not been at par with the learners. And sometimes you find there is that gap and conflict between managers of schools or teachers and pupils. So it's important that teachers or the Department of Education or Ministry of Education work closely with the Department for Children's Services so that they are able to understand the developmental stages of children and the different approaches in managing some of these behaviors. I think they have rolled out a very good curriculum through the funding of UNICEF, and I think if that model is approached, then it will be easier to manage some of these issues that we are talking about. And then lastly, the same should also be extended to the parents. The children go to school, learn a lot on issues of rights and all that, but when they come back home, the same is not reflected or replicated. So you find there is that gap of the child at school and at home. So I think that we will be able to manage our children well. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Maru, for your feedback. Now, do you agree with Maru on that, there being a gap?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Maru, and also Madam Mothe for that quality feedback. I want to iterate on some few aspects that probably also will help in driving this narrative. Behavior and actions are usually outputs. Apparently, we lack what we call consequential thinking in terms of, cause and effect. For every effect, there's a cause. So if you're trying to kind of address behavior and actions, we will really be missing the point. So we need to go deeper and say, what is the cause for all this? And I want to touch on an angle which probably is not very much spoken about. Lazy and emotionally intelligent children. Feelings and emotions are assets. In fact, currently we call them data. They are like our big data. And how we manage the feelings of behavior and in terms of action. Apparently we are very silent about this, and there's a whole psychological aspect to this. Children have not been brought up in a manner to know how to express their feelings. Nor was I taught. So we are left with the feelings that are suppressed, and if you suppress feelings, down the line what you see is aggression. So we've not really been able to bring out children who are able to express their feelings. And you can see this even from when a child is 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. Emotional intelligence currently is a critical issue, and it's not just for adults. Emotional intelligence should actually start where early. How many of our teachers are actually been able to, as just Paul was saying about even guidance and counseling, there is the mechanical approach to it, just flipping through those guidance and counseling process. But there's another angle of equipping even our teachers to know how to deal with emotions. How do they manage emotions and help these children to be emotionally intelligent?
Absolutely.
So we'll find that they suppress these things. We are even in a 21st century industrial revolution, which we call the 4.0. Now, we are processing too much information than a typical human brain can handle. And you and me know we are having social digital fatigue all over in social media, the kind of circulation, Madam Mothe is talking about the circulations around WhatsApp and all that. These kids are exposed to this. There's too much information because of the technology that the human brain cannot actually be able to handle. So unless we're able to build that emotional intelligence capability and also that social intelligence capability for these kids, actually we are likely to see more and more eruption of that disaster. Number two, I want to address another angle.
Now, before we get to number two, we will definitely come back on that so that we can be able to delve more into this matter. Now, it is time to take a short break. We will be right back with more. Do stay tuned.
Entrepreneurs around the country are creatively grinding.
I started with a borrowed phone.
A borrowed phone?
Yeah, that could last 2 hours with charge.
We just have to do quality work for them.
To make their mark in an unpredictable market.
It was now going on a sales venture, looking for stockists door to door.
On the grind, we bring you their stories so you can tell yours. Every Monday at 7:30 p.m. Men are known to be the pillars.
We're rising up together.
Say your point.
You need an alpha male now to come and help you and your girl.
Anaongea zero.
And women, they are the cornerstone that hold the pillars.
Don't be entitled. A man is peaceful, a man knows how to talk to a lady.
This November, the Men's Conference brings a cocktail of diverse ladies to weigh in on various matters.
Something I'd love more to see is men being able to exist as themselves.
Tune in every Wednesday at 10 p.m.
Hello guys, and welcome to Night In with Joy Irungu. Joy Irungu. Joy Irungu.
Heartbreak, pain, and tears have been a major part of Night In Season 1. We thank you for being with us on this journey, and for this upcoming season, we will bring you more empowering stories that not everyone is talking about.
This is the only show where we keep it authentic. We share our lifetime experiences, and you know what? Tell every person that you can turn your pain into power.
Join Joy Irungu on Night In as we take the brave step of sharing.
The Road to 20.
On TV 47, Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m.
You are watching TV 47, the home of untold stories.
Welcome back to the Morning Cafe. Now, before we took a short break, we were discussing on matters unrest in schools. And the life coach, Gabriel, you had a step 2 in how to bridge the gap.
Yeah. All right, good. I think in addition to the emotional intelligence and creating safe spaces for our kids to be able to express themselves, the second aspect is what we call value modeling. And by value modeling, I mean children learn more from observation than instruction. So we probably have used instructional-based approach than the value modeling. So when they see us in the street, when they see us during politicking, when they see us in all, manner of adulthood, how we do things, they kind of pick that's the best way to do things.
So they mirror what is being shown inside.
Exactly. So I would say actually they are a product of how they have seen us model life by itself. If I've never seen my mom and my dad kind of settle grievance, for example, and I don't know that most of us have ever seen that, where you see your mom and dad differ and they express and kind of solve an issue amicably. If they don't see that, generally, they will think, these things, then we're in a free world where then you do what you see. And they'll be either maybe shaped by what they watch, the videos they watch, the movies they watch and all that. And you see most of the videos and the movies and the social media content is more full of violence and rage and all that. So we really need also to dig deep around the values. Now, where did values come in from? Values has to be developed from belief system, and I usually say there should be values for God and good. I don't think we can desist from there, even as a country that is shaped by moral fabric. That they need to fear even something beyond just a human being, because they're not going to be with this parent forever. They're not going to be under the umbrella of the teachers forever. So they need to have a certain sense of control by themselves beyond, and that's what I call for God, because that's a bit of a higher authority than just all of us. And then of course for good means they're able to relate their actions to make sure at least they are doing things that are ethical and they are for the good of the people. And then finally, of course, there has to be a sense of community responsibility. So only local-based community solutions are going to be sustainable. And that's why even when you're talking about these boarding schools and all that, we're trying to see, can we take a step back and probably see whether we can discourage that kind of an approach where we're having somebody, a kid transversing from Trans Nzoia, go all the way to Coast. Yes, we are promoting globalization, which is okay, but I think especially at the formative stage where children are forming, I think it's good just to be more nearer the community that can hold them accountable. I remember when I was young, sometimes we used to be chased away, maybe because you lack a pen. And I can assure you, most of the times we never reached home. It was a walking distance. So in between, I'll meet a certain mzee or an elderly man or lady who is almost the age of my mother, and they'll ask me, where are you going, Gabriel? And I tell them I've been sent home to go and buy a book. Not once, not twice, I was being bought a book by somebody who is not my mother, my father. Because there was a sense of responsibility community, and we have lacked that. Currently, we live in estates, and even dare touch your neighbor's child.
You can't even trust your neighbors.
Exactly. You end up in court, actually. So we have lost that fabric, which is a communal responsibility. And I think those are some of the things that we need to dig deep. As much as we are focusing on the management side at the school level, let's also go back a step further, because by the time we're even taking these kids to the teachers, they have already formed and normed some behavior, some mindset. And that becomes a bit very hard for teachers, actually, even for them to handle that.
So when it comes to mirroring the society, now over to you, Jasper. We saw what happened back in Mohoho High School when the students told the head teacher, you know, don't text us, we'll text you on when we want to come back to school. And also there's a school in Baringo County called Barisa Secondary School, where the school principal now has to, you know, ditch his suits and put on the school uniform. So what's all about that is what's all about it, about the mantle of power?
Sometimes it is very basic solutions that can go hardy as far as addressing these issues concerned. You've given an example of a principal donning school uniform. You know, once you do that, the students will appreciate, they will understand, you know, this guy is part of us. And sometimes, even I remember when I was in high school, our school principal sometimes could queue and get served and eat the same meal. That way then the students will believe, okay, this meal is good, you know, even the principal is eating this particular meal. But you find there are some schools where the teachers do not adequately interact with the children. They will have their own meals in the staff room, and then there will be a badly prepared meal for the children. And sometimes it is very easy to tackle the problems that these particular teenagers undergo. I remember even when I was in high school, the school principal used to organize barazas once every month, where we could share our concerns. We could say, you know, these guys are putting paraffin in Gideri, this guy is, the teacher is not coming to class. So we find in such a way we get an opportunity to vent out our grievances. And like some principals where you'll find that they not want to listen to the learners, there is ineffective prefect body system, because some of these things like banning schools are prepared over a period of time. So if you have if you have prefects in school who can be able even to tell you in advance that so and so is planning to do this, then that way you'll be able to avert it. But the culture where you'll find that some principals are very strict, they're very harsh, even to the parents themselves. Even when we have the parent-teacher meetings, you know, when we invite parents to school, you find that there are some principals, they will lecture the parents. The parents will not ask questions. They'll be told, you know, you're going to pay this amount of money, you're going to bring these books, thank you so much, and the principal goes. I think we need to look at the kind of training even before you become a principal. Can you undergo a particular training so that you are able to have the necessary experience? And I remember I learned in a particular school in Kisii called Nyamagwa Boys High School. It was one of the best performing schools in Kisii. But once the principal left, the school collapsed. Even today, it is a shell of its former self. So what was it that this principal was doing that no any other principal can do? it. So there should be a standardized kind of training that these principals will undergo, because leadership is quite critical in this particular sector. So on winding up on the issue that you had, is all about identity. Let the principal be part of the learners. Let them do activities with the learners. Sometimes let them get out of their office, play football with these particular learners. That way you'll find that they will start even loving the school more, loving the principal.
Absolutely. Yeah. So now over to Madam Mutheu Kasanga. Now, you know, what is the long-term solution, you know, when it comes to school unrest in the country, and who is the well-funded regulator for this?
Now, this school unrest is not new. Let's agree on that. Yeah. That right from the years, you know, like up to when corporal punishment was banned, one of the reasons why corporal punishment was banned was school unrest, because of how the extremes that we had in the system then. And let us agree that corporal punishment, going back to it as people quickly in it, is not the solution. What is the solution is that we have to improve and keep investing in school management. And this is clear. In worst spate of school arson and unrest, our focus back into school management calmed the situation down. Right now, even this discussion is showing that when the students are interrogated about why things are happening in their schools, you're seeing elements of school leadership, perhaps not call them failures, but oversight, and perhaps teachers in public schools are overwhelmed, like Jasper has mentioned, because of 100% transition and whatnot. But leadership shouldn't be a one-man thing. It should be a one person, like the top person. We must invest in school leadership so that school leaders can come together, all school leaders, to make sure that they have the real-time touch of what is going on in their schools, and that they are problem solvers, so that students do not feel that the only way to get their problems addressed is by lashing out against the school. I think I want to really focus on what Mr. Gabriel has been saying, because these are some of the things perhaps where the private sector and private schools have sort of done a little bit better, because even for us in 2016, 2017, we did suffer. The schools all banned. But we were able to interpret the ministry guidelines and implement them faster, of course, because our schools are smaller, and therefore embed certain cultures. Right now, for many of us, school leadership is not just a thing anybody walks into. For many in the government, like Jasper is saying, there seems to be a disconnect between how people get into school leadership. So it is either you have the academic papers and then you get there automatically, or is it performance-based, that you are seen to be a brilliant leader and you go through the ranks until you become principal? Those things need to be looked at, because for us in the private sector, choice of school leaders is what we know for a fact is the hinge between a school that is successful and a school that is not successful. Mm-hmm. In Kenya, we've never heard of a government school being shut down and restarted, totally shut down. All the teachers are transferred, students are transferred, a new cohort is brought in under new leaders to restart the school. And therefore you have examples of what Jasper has just given. There are schools that used to be that used to be brilliant, but are no longer anywhere near their heydays. We need the quality assurance and standards body to sort of be bold and come in, because at the moment it seems to operate mainly for private schools. They can shut down private schools. We've never ever heard of a public school that has been judged unfit for purpose and therefore restarted, because private schools, you're shut and the owner has to either sell or re-engineer themselves. In public schools, we do not have that re-engineering process, and perhaps it is time that the current quality assurance and standards body sort of think outside the box and remember that all children are Kenyan children, and not really latch on to private schools to prove themselves effective.
Absolutely.